about violence as it happens in our cities and in our towns, then we think about the threat of nuclear war. We think about the future of humanity and the existential threats, not only of climate, but of nuclear war. This is reality. Nuclear weapons should be taken totally off the page, off the table, should never be used again. And here we are tonight, 74 years later. We need, as citizens, as cities, we need the support of our citizens and our people. And I think that we ought to talk to those people up there and the people in Washington and say, stop it. Enough is enough. Yeah. We need to stand up against violence, against nuclear war, against war in particular.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in a recent message, the only true guarantee against the use of nuclear weapons is the total elimination, adding, this remains the United Nations and my personal highest disarmament priority. The atomic bombs were built by human hands and exploded over human heads. It follows that nuclear weapons can be eliminated by an act of human will.
74 years ago today, the U.S. dropped the second atomic bomb over the city of Nagasaki. The U.S. is the only nation to ever use atomic weapons. Yet, 74 years after we witnessed those horrors in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we still live in very dangerous times. Some might say even more dangerous times. The world faces the unfolding crises related to climate change, the imminent loss of critical food sources, insects and animal species. We face mounting gun violence, as the mayor spoke about. We see children being removed from their families and held in cages at our borders. Our president has defied Congress's demand to cease support for the Saudi-led Yemeni war. And the list of these truly frightening injustices and inhumanity is growing right alongside the weakening of the few protections we have had regarding the world's nuclear arsenal. Today we face several critical junctures regarding nuclear arms. And unfortunately, the wider world, or rather the wider citizenry of this country, tend to not be aware of or respond to that. The arms treaties with Russia are being broken. Washington and Moscow have both walked out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces, the INF Treaty. Over its lifetime, this treaty led to the elimination of almost 3,000 U.S. and Soviet nuclear and conventional ground-launched ballistic and cruise missiles. It was no small deal. Until its demise, the treaty banned land-based missiles with a range of over 300 to over 3,000 miles. It will be the first time since 1972 that the two countries will be operating without any mutual constraints on nuclear forces. The Trump administration has requested a massive increase in nuclear investments by 2028. Amounting to $94 billion more than the already exorbitant $400 billion originally estimated for the years up till 2026. The proposed new low-yield nuclear weapon is certainly a misnomer. It would be far more powerful than any conventional weapon ever used. Think about it as 2,600 times the power of the Oklahoma City bombing, for example. It will have 43% of the destructive power of the bomb that was leveled on Hiroshima in '45 that killed between 90,000 and 166,000 people. The campaign to abolish nuclear weapons received the Nobel Peace Prize for its efforts and is working for the treaty to enter into force by, as was told to you, 50 nations to ratify it. As of today, 70 nations have signed, 24 have ratified. Although not unexpectedly, none of them are nuclear weapon states. If ratified, the U.S. would be in violation of international law and in a sense become a rogue nation under that law. With this opportunity to finally ban the bomb and end nuclear terror, we all have an opportunity to open up a path for true peace and reconciliation. This is the moment for all of us to join together to end the twin threats to our existence, the climate crisis and the nuclear nightmare. What can we do? We have to reimagine this country as one nation in the world, not one above it. We have to acknowledge the horror behind unbridled military might. It's time for us to come together and begin to engage the rest of the world in ways that cooperate rather than coerce, to articulate a positive vision. We in PSR worked with the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War and ICANN to get the treaty passed. We're trying to move forward step by step. We know this nation is not about to ban nuclear weapons anytime soon. We have a humongous arsenal. But there are some things we can do. We're special here in Iowa. We have all the candidates coming through. We need to talk to them. We need to get them to oppose first use of nuclear weapons. We don't have such a policy right now. We could launch a nuclear weapon. There is no first use policy at this point. We need to support Senator Warren's bill 272, Representative Smith's bill 921 to oppose the first use of nuclear weapons. We need to oppose the outrageously costly expansion of our nuclear arsenal and call for massive investments at this critical juncture in human and planetary health. We need that Green Deal for all of us. Taking that money out of useless military spending would go a long way to providing that health care we need, that education we need, to provide food, housing, all of those things that we know we need. We need to ask all the presidential candidates to pledge support for the ban treaty, for cutting Pentagon spending, and for opposing first use of nuclear weapons. On multiple stages, all of us have to build on our enthusiasm and our support for halting climate change, advancing human rights, global living standards, while working to establish normal relations with Iran and other nations of the world. This is the linchpin to end our endless embroilment in Middle East wars. The world really cannot wait. The time is now.